Welcome to Kansas Ag Report. I'm Ken Rogers. This week we visit with the CEO of CattleFax, Randy Blach. We review 2018 and then what he sees for the cattle markets in 2019. We'll also have features from the Kansas Soybean Commission and Kansas Department of Agriculture. The Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Kansas Farm Bureau, a grassroots organization representing the state's farmers and ranchers since 1919. KFB.org. Kansas Wheat Commission, leading in the adoption of profitable innovations for wheat. Online, kswheat.com. And Kansas Corn, building the future of Kansas corn. Online, kscorn.com. In agriculture news from agview.net, this past week, saw a lot of reaction to the announcement made late last week by Kansas Senator Pat Roberts, announcing in Manhattan that he will not be seeking re-election in 2020. Roberts has served in Congress since 1981, starting out in the 1st District. He's the only person who has chaired the House and Senate Ag Committees as well. The senator said he's always proud to have been a champion for agriculture. In fact, just last month, Roberts helped pass a new farm bill. That was his 8th farm bill during his tenure on Capitol Hill. He'll serve the remaining 2 years of his term through the year 2020. With soybean farmers seeking a resolution to the trade war between the U.S. and China, warning that long-term impacts of the conflict are harming farmers. 6 months ago, China placed tariffs on U.S. soybeans as part of that back-and-forth trade war. While China has begun some purchases of U.S. soybeans and some of the trade talks are ongoing, especially this week, American Soybean Association points out that U.S. soybean growers have faced a nearly 20% drop in soy prices since the threat of those tariffs began last summer. The value of U.S. soybean exports to China has grown 26-fold in 10 years, from $414 million in 1996 to $14 billion in 2017. China imported 31% of U.S. production in 2017. That's about 60% of the total U.S. exports, and nearly 1 in every 3 rows of harvested soybeans. Well, the new Farm Bill passage late last year was thought to provide some certainty to U.S. agriculture moving forward, but as 2019 started, perhaps even more uncertainty now than ever. The government shutdown has made USDA farm service agencies closed, just as farmers are seeking some advice for the upcoming planting season. Well, meanwhile, the Farm Bill, which provides some critical programs and promotion as well as research for agriculture, will be delayed in implementation as the bulk of the federal agencies, like USDA, are unfunded right now and are closed. Adding more fuel to the uncertainty fire is USDA late last week officially suspending this week's World Agriculture Supply and Demand Report. That goes along with the grain stocks, winter wheat acres, canola seeding, as well as some cotton ginnings reports, all of which were scheduled to be released yesterday, January 11th. The federal agency says the date of all those USDA National Ag Statistics Service reports are still unclear, but they will be determined and made public once funding is been restored. Well, when we return, Randy Blach with CattleFax joins us here on the Kansas Ag Report. Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Oldie Seed Farms, carrying soil-specific seed. Find them on the web, oldieseed.com. That's OHLDE seed.com. Kansas Livestock Association, supporting members' business interests and meeting consumer demands. KLA.org. Grass and Grain, online or in the mail, keeping Kansas farmers informed for over 60 years. grassandgrain.com. And Kansas Grain Sorghum, growers working together. More at ksgrainsorghum.org.
Sue Schulte with Kansas Corn, and here's what's going on with the Kansas Corn Growers Association. A long process officially began in early 2017 to craft the 2018 Farm Bill. After many delays that included the expiration of the current Farm Bill, the House and Senate overwhelmingly passed the 2018 Farm Bill in mid-December. Kansas Corn worked closely with the National Corn Growers Association and our state commodity organizations to give guidance and input to lawmakers as the bill was developed. The 2018 Farm Bill maintains support for a robust crop insurance program, our organization's top priority, and strengthens the Ark County program through administrative improvements, including a one-time change option, an increase to the yield plug for disaster years, the use of a trend-adjusted yield factor, and a market adjustment provision for the floor price. The bill also provides increased funding for trade promotion programs that are especially important to agriculture at this time. Our Kansas leaders played a key role in passage of the Farm Bill, with Senator Pat Roberts chairing the Senate Ag Committee and the Conference Committee, and Kansas Congressman Roger Marshall serving on both committees on the House side. Our entire congressional delegation supported the Farm Bill. Find out more by visiting Kansas Corn on social media or our website at kscorn.com.
Welcome back. We're pleased to be joined now by Randy Blach, the CEO of CattleFax. It seems like this is kind of an annual deal, which we always appreciate. Randy, always good to see you.
Oh, good to see you too. Treat to be over at KLA convention.
You bet. Well, this is probably one of the highlights of the meeting, is when you get to talk about the numbers and kind of forecasts. And we always want to ask you. But let's review 2018. I think a couple years ago we talked, one for the record books, but 2018, with everything else going on, pretty good year for the beef industry.
Oh, it was a great year. You know, the total protein supply is up nearly 3 billion pounds. Have the cow-calf segment as profitable as they were. The feeding margins weren't very profitable, but we didn't lose a lot of money either going through this kind of stage of production increases. So exports have been phenomenal. Domestic demand's been phenomenal. I don't think any of us could have drawn either of those aspects of the market up to be as positive as they've been.
It seems like, as far as to get to that point, maybe was a bit of a challenge, but every month when those reports come out, we still continue to see, again, one thing wasn't that many months ago, we were a little concerned of where the domestic demand might be.
Oh, we really were. You know, we got a lot going on out here, and you got all these trade issues that we've had. You know, obviously that sparked a lot of uncertainties, and markets don't like uncertainty. We all know that. So when you look back and you think about how well we've navigated through here, domestic demand, domestic spending has been strong. I think for your listeners out here and viewers, the key thing for them to understand is beef spending has increased $60 billion since 2000. $60 billion. That's the equivalent of a demand increase that's worth $270 a head. I mean, that's phenomenal to see what's happened in this industry, and it's really because the industry's done such a phenomenal job of producing what the consumers want. A much higher quality product that is consistent day in and day out, and the consumers voting with their pocketbook. They're voting that beef's winning the battle now.
It is, and also don't you think that many industry partners have worked together to grow the markets internationally and finding maybe some of those that we don't necessarily utilize in North America, but other parts of the world that very quietly that really shores up the bottom line.
It really does. You know, it's a perfect point because you're sitting in there, you had record beef exports in 2018. It was 3.2 billion pounds. Beef exports have increased to this kind of a magnitude in a short period of time. They're adding $360 a head. $360 a head value to every fed steer and calf that we produce in our marketplace. That's $65 a hundred on a 5.5 weight calf. 20% of the total value of a fed steer is generated out of the export market. So who would have ever dreamed that 15 years ago?
Absolutely. Randy Blach, the CEO of CattleFax, is joining us. We're going to take a break and be back with more. We're going to get a little prognostication in just a moment. Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Kansas Farm Bureau, a grassroots organization representing the state's farmers and ranchers since 1919. KFB.org. Kansas Wheat Commission, leaders in the adoption of profitable innovations for wheat. And AgView.net, covering news and views in the Beef Belt and Western Corn Belt. Reliable and relevant, AgView.net.
Imagine having someone help you pick the best corn hybrids for every field on your farm. Your Oldie representative can combine your data with his data to offer a field-by-field prescription. Contact Oldie Seed today at 877-692-4555.
This Medford, New Jersey school bus runs on biodiesel, and so do these. In fact, all of these buses run on clean-burning biodiesel, which is great because the more we use biodiesel in our heavy-duty vehicles, the less carbon pollution in our air. Think how great it would be if more of our school buses ran on biodiesel. More biodiesel, less carbon pollution. More is less. Biodiesel, America's advanced biofuel.
The producer-funded Kansas Wheat Innovation Center was built to get improved varieties into the hands of farmers faster. Kansas Wheat, farmers advancing their future through wheat genetics research.
And Randy Blach, the CEO of CattleFax, joins us kind of for our annual get-together. Randy, let's now kind of get into, we always like for you to look in your crystal ball and kind of some of the things you shared with KLA members at the convention. There's obviously a number of factors leading to this, but here we are in wintertime. What are you looking at 2019?
Well, we're going to have more beef, more pork, more poultry again in 2019, so that isn't going to change. And we're going to produce 12 to 13 billion more pounds of protein in the U.S. marketplace than we were just 5-6 years ago. So we'll have record meat consumption in the United States in 2019, which is phenomenal. You think about what that means. People are eating more protein than they ever have, and again, that's a function of a very strong economy. So we've got more supply. Demand has been excellent. I think we have to be a little more careful as we look down the road. At some point, we're a little overdue for a slowdown in the economy. We've got some debt problems out here we still need to deal with. So I think we need to be a little more cautious. Don't want to get ahead of ourselves because we still have bigger supplies coming for another 2 to 3 years. So I would be a little bit cautiously optimistic, but in general I'd say our markets are going to average very similar to what they did in 2018. Fed cattle prices will average about $1.15 for the year compared to $17 in 2018, and the calf market we think will average around $1.60, which will be a little bit softer than they were in 2018, and feeder cattle prices averaging about $1.45. So again, not a bad market at all, but a little thinner margins than what we've had here recently.
I noticed one of the comments you made on the importance of the export markets. Without it, even what we saw in 2018, we'd be off, upwards of 70 cents maybe? Or more than that.
Yeah, if you think about the export market, all you have to do is, I think all your viewers and listeners can think back to 2015. That hasn't been very long ago. 2015 was devastating. It was a rout. Well, it was a rout for all protein producers because our export markets collapsed on us during the second half of the year. From July forward, it was a very, very disappointing time period as we were going through some recalibration in the global markets. Again, they've been so strong in here the last few years. We've had triple or double-digit gains in exports for beef in 18, 17, and 16. What's the odds that you do that again in 2019? Again, the long-term growth trend is 6% a year. So we just need to keep it in perspective. We've gotten along well, but we got to be careful.
Would be remiss if I didn't talk to you just a little bit about the USMCA, kind of NAFTA 2.0, because it stays where it was. That's another kind of staple of stability, which has got to help.
Oh, it's really important for us. These trade agreements are key, you know. We call it NAFTA 2.0, whatever. I mean, that's a critical one. Canada and Mexico are two major trade partners. We've seen the same situation unfold with Korea. The trade agreement with Korea, the biggest growth market for U.S. exports this year was Korea. Again, that trade agreement is huge. We need to make sure that we get a bilateral trade agreement done with Japan in 2019 to where we don't lose market share to Australia going into that particular market. So that's a key one for us. Obviously, the China trade negotiations, the tariff, the battles that we have going on there, that's probably going to take some time.
Right.
But it's important we get that solved
Right.
here sometime in 2019.
Well, Randy, always great to have that conversation with you and letting our folks know kind of what's going on, what to expect. Glad to have you come back to Kansas. You're always welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Best of luck to all your folks out there, and hope everybody has a wonderful holiday season. And thanks for all the blessings.
Great. Randy Blach, the CEO of CattleFax, has joined us. Stay with us. More coming up.
The producer-funded Kansas Wheat Innovation Center was built to get improved varieties into the hands of farmers faster. Kansas Wheat, farmers advancing their future through wheat genetics research.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture, represents grassroots agriculture. The state's largest and most powerful farm organization stands up for its members through leadership development, agriculture education, legal defense, environmental advocacy, farm safety, and risk management. Members also enjoy money-saving benefits. To join our organization today or to learn more, go to www.kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
What if sustainability were synonymous with U.S. soy? If energy efficiency, water quality, and soil health help define U.S. soy's value, that future is here, the time is now. To meet end-user demands, the Soybean Checkoff is committing to sustainability that's achievable, worthwhile, and enduring. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
What does a brighter, more sustainable future look like in our cities and towns, and how do we get there? When New York needed an alternative fuel source to reduce carbon emissions, the city found what it needed in biodiesel made from U.S. soybean oil.
Many seed companies claim to offer the latest genetics, but how many have tested those genetics in soils just like yours? The Oldie Seed Know to Grow research program has fully tested the latest seed genetics in soils that are right in your neighborhood. The Oldie Seed Know to Grow program can recommend the best performing hybrids from technologies like Enlist, Extend, and LibertyLink that will optimize the yield and profit of every acre on your farm. Contact Oldie Seed today.
The annual Kansas Soybean Yield and Value Contests recognize outstanding farmers, provide fun incentives for them to improve, and allow the Kansas Soybean Association, with checkoff funding from the Kansas Soybean Commission, to share what participants learn to benefit all soybean farmers. This year's yield contest included 30 entries. The 19 prize winners had verified yields averaging 82 bushels per acre. The value contest had 21 entries. For their protein and oil contents, the top 3 averaged about 99 cents, or 11.5%, in increased value over the $8.60 base cash price. Love and Love Farms, Montezuma, topped the irrigated division with a conventional tillage entry that made 104.14 bushels per acre, the contest's new record, and only the second entry ever to document more than 100 bushels. Matt Geiger Denton led the dryland division with a conventional tillage entry of 94.1 bushels. Cole McCauley, Leona, won the value contest with $1.04 per bushel of increased value. The The winners received their prizes at the Kansas Soybean Expo, January 9 in Topeka. In each district, first place won $300, second $200, and third $100. The highest dryland and irrigated yields in the contest each earned $1,000, and Love and Love Farms got another $1,000 bonus for surpassing 100 bushels. Complete results are at kansassoybeans.org/contests on the web.
Kansas farmers markets not only provide a fresh food source, but also stimulate the local economy. The Kansas Department of Agriculture's Marketing, Advocacy, and Outreach team includes From the Land of Kansas, the state's trademark program, which helps Kansas businesses that grow, produce, process, or manufacture products in Kansas, with a special emphasis on farmers markets and specialty crops. The Kansas Ag Growth Strategy has identified training for small companies via workshops as a key growth outcome for the specialty crop sector, particularly in the western half of the state. With that outcome in mind, KDA is partnering with K-State Research and Extension and the Kansas Department of Health and Environment to host 6 regional farmers market workshops across the state this February, providing education through partnerships to help make Kansas farmers, ranchers, and agribusinesses more successful. The workshops will be held February 1st in Olathe, February 2nd in Parsons, February 8th in Dodge City, February 9th in Wichita, February 15th in Manhattan, and February 22nd in Hayes. If you are a farmers market vendor or manager, we encourage you to attend one of the regional workshops, which will focus on topics such as vendor marketing and communications, pest control and soil health, sales tax for vendors, Kansas Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program certified farmer training, regulations for selling meat, eggs, and poultry, and more. KDA's Weights and Measures program will also offer free scale certification at all of the workshops. And at the Olathe and Parsons workshop, attendees can participate in a morel mushroom identification session. More information, including agendas and registration forms for the workshops, can be found at fromthelandofkansas.com/FM workshop or at your local extension office.
The Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Kansas Farm Bureau, a grassroots organization representing the state's farmers and ranchers since 1919, kfb.org. Kansas Wheat Commission, leading in the adoption of profitable innovations for wheat, online, kswheat.com. And Kansas Corn, building the future of Kansas corn, online, kscorn.com.
What if sustainability were synonymous with U.S. soy? If energy efficiency, water quality, and soil health help define U.S. soy's value, that future is here, the time is now. To meet end-user demands, the Soybean Checkoff is committing to sustainability that's achievable, worthwhile, and enduring. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture, represents grassroots agriculture. The state's largest and most powerful farm organization stands up for its members through leadership development, agriculture education, legal defense, environmental advocacy, farm safety, and risk management. Members also enjoy money-saving benefits. To join our organization today or to learn more, go to www.kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
The producer-funded Kansas Wheat Innovation Center was built to get improved varieties into the hands of farmers faster. Kansas Wheat, farmers advancing their future through wheat genetics research.
All over the country, more and more communities are making the change to biodiesel made from U.S. soybean oil. And the decision continues, improving the health and welfare for millions of Americans while adding billions to our national economy.
What does a brighter, more sustainable future look like in our cities and towns? And how do we get there? When New York needed an alternative fuel source to reduce carbon emissions, the city found what it needed in biodiesel made from U.S. soybean oil.
News stories circulated by some media have presented misinformation on the status of federal electronic logging device regulations for livestock haulers. For clarification, According to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, during the government shutdown, transporters of livestock and insects are not required to have an electronic logging device, nor do they need to carry any documentation justifying the exemption. The logging device exemption for livestock haulers will remain in effect until Congress moves forward on an extension of the temporary exemption found in the U.S. Department of Transportation budget, or the Department of Transportation budget is passed without extension of the temporary logging device exemption. Some media misinterpreted the message from the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration to mean the exemption is permanent, which is not the case. The National Cattlemen's Beef Association and Kansas Livestock Association will continue to push for an extension of the short-term exemption in Department of Transportation budget bills until a longer-term solution to hours of service for livestock haulers can be reached. For the great majority of the trips made by livestock haulers, current electronic logging device and hours of service regulations do not allow enough drive time to accommodate the realities of transporting live animals across the country. Research also demonstrates repeated loading and unloading harms the livestock and puts the hauler in danger.
Good morning, I'm Darren Van Vactor with Paragon Ag. The December report came and went pretty quietly, offering few changes and little impact on the markets. However, the markets have drifted higher regarding corn, beans, and wheat as of late. Let's take a look. Easing U.S.-China trade tensions has helped as the bean market has been pushing higher ever since the G20 summit in early December. The White House continues to display an optimistic outlook regarding trade talk, which has in turn bolstered the ag markets. As such, the government has delayed the announcement for the second wave of the farmers' aid payment until month's end. As for wheat, we've seen some recent export business bumping it out of the downward channel. As we work into the cold winter months, we may see debate surrounding winter kill on reduced or late planted acres. Looking for an opportunity to hedge some new crop risk on such a move would be prudent. Corn has continued to hold its own, pushing 30 cents off its early harvest lows. Demand has been good as we have dug into supplies and basis has improved post-harvest in most areas. March, the front month contract, is sitting in striking distance of the $4 mark, making it hard to argue with getting something done at these levels. There are ways to lay off future risk without making a physical commitment or retain ownership of previously sold grain. If you have questions, we'd be happy to help. Give us a call here at Paragon Ag Advisors, 888-452-8751. I'm Darren Van Vactor. Be safe and have a great week.
Well, that's our show this week. Be social with us at KansasAgReport.net or on Facebook and Twitter. Next week, we'll have reports from the Kansas Soybean Expo in Topeka, and in the future, we hope to sit down with the next Kansas Secretary of Agriculture. I'm Ken Rogers. Thanks for watching the Kansas Ag Report. We'll see you next week.